All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Disruption. This is Mike Libercci, and on behalf of my co-host, Jay Clendenning, I'd like to welcome a real sales powerhouse and a hell of a guy, Ben Wright. What's up, Ben? How are you?
Hey Mike, really happy to be here today, all the way from the other side of the world. I think we are almost exactly the other side of the world. But yeah, thank you for having me on.
Well, if I drill down, maybe I can pop up and get to you, and we can, have a chat there and have a coffee, maybe. I would love that.
It would be quicker than all the flight delays that are happening with jet fuel prices at the moment. So
Oh
yeah, let's
my
do it.
goodness. I can't even believe that. Can you believe what's going on right now? And I'm not even segueing into what, when, and where. The chaos in terms of price, security, travel, the logistics are a nightmare. People are reporting to me, I haven't flown in a minute, in about a month and a half. And from what I gather, it's going crazy out there. How about over on your side?
We're definitely feeling the pain. I mean, if we look just from a pure travel point of view, I've just been to Thailand with my family. We've just got back. Every single flight was delayed by one, and we went 4 flights, and we had pretty significant delays. But I mean, in a sales landscape, it's adding so much uncertainty for customers at the other end. It's adding uncertainty for suppliers and manufacturers that there's definitely turbulence out there in more than just your daily commute or your plane flights, whatever it may be. It's actually impacting businesses, I think, at a greater level, but those that are pretty agile, those that have seen it's a period of time rather than a change in how we operate, have tended to be okay, certainly down under where we are.
Now, I don't know about you, but you bring up this good point about turbulence and uncertainty. I always use this micro macro view where I kind of pan back, take a look at it, say, okay, this is permanent, temporary. I'm not going to let this affect me. I'm going to adjust accordingly, but I'm not going to let it like depress my nervous system and get me frantic. I'm not going to be blind to the reality of what's happening, but I'm also not going to get steered by negative influences. And a lot of times, like you're a sales specialist, and all of your information is going to be on in the show notes. I'm not going to burn time here. You can give us a quick overview of how long you've been in the sales game. But really, I'd like to get a little coaching from you for the audience, and we're going to pretend I'm the audience on a few things today. And the first thing right now, as we're talking about this, when you have this uncertainty and you're still in the sales process or you're selling to customers, how do you handle that discrepancy between maybe something in your life is bothering you and you're trying to lock in and you're trying to get this sales thing going? How does somebody handle that separation?
It's a really interesting point, and when we throw uncertainty, I'll give you a real live example. We've been on air for 2 minutes, and in the 2 minutes that we've been on an air, I have had a kangaroo bounce in front of my window. I've had a fox chase that kangaroo. I haven't seen a fox around our house in years, and I've just had a great big white Labrador come trailing through. So it's been a commercial of pets that come through. So when we talk a bit about uncertainty and things throwing you off your game, I've just had one of those moments before we get into today. But as I answer that, it's probably worth me giving that really brief background. So my job today is to find 2 or 3 pieces of value, 2 or 3 changes or adjustments that your listeners can make to how they sell. Because if I can do that, then we've really created some great value for your listeners, and they'll come back again and again and again. And the reason I'm qualified to do that, I think, is that I'm now 43. I have to say that because some people say, although I've got a beard at the moment, some people say you look a bit younger than that, right? But I'm 25 years now in sales. And by the way, that white Labrador's back, paws up on the window in front of me. It's not our dog. I've never seen it before in my life. And I've got 25 years in sales, and that has been across corporate businesses. That's been starting my own businesses where I carry the bag. That's been through really fast growth businesses. We won company growth awards in Australia for our businesses. We had about 23 in our sales team of our largest business at peak. So I've lived many sales lives, and what has come from that is successes, but also lots of failures, and lots of time to be able to reflect and decide and I guess test what works really well and what doesn't work in the sales landscape. And for me, when we talk about uncertainty, which is that piece we've focused in on already, salespeople, and in fact any people in businesses, one of your previous podcasts spoke about who your customer is, but anyone who has customers, be you internal customers, external customers, where you can create value and where you can be focused on how you create value is a really terrific way to work through uncertainty, because that allows you to find right now what's most important to your customer. And when you're digging into that, you're generally going to have a captive audience, people that are willing to talk, learn, listen, and in the end do business with you because you've uncovered what that value is.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, I guess it goes to the principle of make it about them, not you. And this goes for, and we've all been there as entrepreneurs, where you've got more time than money, and you've got more. You're selling off the back. You're selling off the front foot, not the back foot. You're desperate. You need to make a sale. Your back's against the wall. If you can transcend those emotions and become a value tool, it doesn't really matter where you are in life. It matters that you're becoming a conduit. Same thing goes for the experienced salesperson that is so used to or has a high close rate or high conversion rate, whatever language we want to use, right? You start taking the sales process for granted, and you start thinking ahead of your customer, and you lose the fact that you're trying to establish value. Somebody needs something. You have something someone needs. You're educating, you're creating the value, and you're making that connection. Is that an accurate recap of what you were saying?
Look, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Mike. I think it is. And I spend the majority of my time now, it hasn't always been this way, but I spend the majority of my time now working with trade, building, construction, industry businesses, people that own their own business. They're 20 to 30. They technically are very proficient, but they're in this situation where they're quoting over and over and over again and just not winning deals. Right? They're super busy. They're frustrated. They can't get deals done. But at the same time, I've worked with huge numbers of experienced salespeople. I have a process with a team of 50 salespeople. They're a $300 to $400 million business, and they have, of those 50 salespeople, they have about 20 who I would say are career salespeople. So 20, 30 years in the industry. And what's common across both of those is that they have strengths and weaknesses. The younger generation is still learning how to sell, but the more experienced generation, they know so much, but they have almost forgotten more than they've learned, and they become dangerous because they rely on their knowledge and their confidence to get deals done. Whereas with both of these parties and both of these different personas, if you like, where they can ask great questions, which I would guess and assume, assumptions can make fools of us, but I would assume that most of your people listening have heard that before, and they know, hey, I need to ask great questions. But the difficulty comes in to say, okay, I know I need to ask great questions. I know I need to create value. But how do I trust myself to do it in the moment when I'm busy, when I'm distracted, when I have a kangaroo, fox, and a Labrador run flying in front of me in the middle of a sales consult, whatever it may be.
But I think a kid's book over there. Totally sounds like a kid's book. The kangaroo, the fox, and the Labrador.
Yeah. Look, we live in one of the most beautiful places in Australia, which I can riff along later on. But one of the bonuses is we get that and snakes and all sorts of things with it. But where both of those parties can build a very simple system, and that's one of my biggest learnings through mistakes over my 25 years in sales, is that simplicity really is more important than a 15-step or a 10-step or a framework or a script that is really detailed. But where they can build a simple system that allows them to trust themselves to ask the right questions that then creates value, these are the people that I'm seeing succeed, because they're able to do that again and again and again, each and every day, regardless of what's happening around them.
Okay, so you're talking more like a process, and work me through. Why don't you give a light example of a process? And then this is for the master or the sort of beginner here, the journeyman. I'm always fascinated by this thing because we're going to talk in a minute about marketing versus sales. I love sales. Nothing happens until somebody sells something, right? You can't do a darn thing until a transaction happens in business. Just can't do it. You could have people can walk through your door. They can't get to your door without marketing. nothing happens until a sale is made. So for me, I feel like, man, I could go on here for about 3.5 hours with you and pick your brain for 3.5 hours. But at the risk of sounding super, super basic, which I think we both know that this is actually the root of success, is this a basic fundamental process. What exactly is the definition of a or an example of a basic fundamental process? Let's get 101 here. Let's get real simple.
Yeah, cool. And I like the way you're going about this here because we're layering. We're now up to our.
Well, I guess Ben took a pause. The Australian internet rolled out and rolled back in. We're gonna work through that here. So as we sit here and talk about it, what we want to do is we want to come up with an idea. I'm gonna walk you guys through some basic ideas about a sales process, and when and then Ben's going to come back in and correct me a little bit. So my version of a sales process, right, is and again, I can't wait for Ben to come back in and school me on this. We're going to walk in and we're going to go customer need, listen, learn, talk, introduce, listen, learn, needs, talk, introduce. Listen, learn, needs, talk, introduce. So, with that being said, as we walk and talk through these processes, each process becomes a layer. And as we roll through these layers, hey, there's Ben. He's back. Hey, Ben, I was just giving the audience here a brief, and I want to see if I'm right. While you were, the land of the internet, while you were working on detaching and reattaching the internet, there is a brief overview of a sales process, and I was talking about listening, learning, talking, introducing, listening, learning, talking, introducing. Right? That's kind of a formula that I'm not a sales expert. I mean, I've sold a few things, but I was just giving a basic framework. So as you were talking about layering, let's talk deeper about a process. It happens.
Most customers then spend a process or the rest of the process thinking, okay, I've chosen Ben, I've chosen Ben, I've chosen Ben, and they're supporting that choice. Versus when you don't create value, it remains as a very competitive process. Is it Ben? Is it Michael? Is it the white Labrador? Is it Ben? Is it Michael? Is it the white Labrador? Right. So that's certainly from a value piece. Then when we get into process, it's all about having a process that is simple enough that you can roll out again and again and again. When you contact a customer, the questions you ask, how quickly you get to site, what you do when you're on site, how you quote, and then how you follow up. And your process can really be as simple as that. But those three levers are really powerful when it comes to building a very simple sales framework or sales process.
I like process. That's when I was going over when when you had jumped out, and I was going over a little bit more of a tactical thing. I like the overview. I like the speed component. I like the sales component of getting back to people and being and in and of itself, the quicker, in my opinion, the quicker someone can meet, like if I have a need and there's a gap in you getting back to me about my need, already you're not valuable, right? Like I need this. In my head, psychologically, I'm in a vulnerable state. I'm reaching out, and my vulnerability. I know this sounds like really micro, but it's really what tactically happens in the brain. You're not creating a friction point for me to get to that. Speed closes the distance. The value means you're hearing me. Now I'm heard. Now I want to. You've got to me. Great. I feel comfortable. It's almost like you need a doctor. You can't get a hold of one, or you need somebody, or there's a flood and you need a plumber, and then you're heard. Right. You're now a salesperson has things I need, and we've left the transaction category and we're moving into the needs category, and now you hear me, right? Oh, Ben's team, he hears me, right? Now what?
Okay,
So
great. So yes, sorry, it must be this long connection between where we both are, or the core drilling through the center. Uh, yeah, you're right. So
the
we've created that value. We have to get some of those tin cups and connect them with a bit of string, and that works even better. So you're right. We've created that value. So what do you do then from a process point of view? I think is what you're asking.
well, I'm the customer. You've gotten back to me. You've listened to me. That's creating value, right? You've established two metrics of value. Tin cup. We need a tin cup, Ben. That's what we need. I think Ben and I need to put a soup can in our ears and a string and vibrate. We need to vibrate that to the. We need to vibrate all the way through the ground and bring it back here. So anyway, Ben's bringing up some fascinating points. He's talking about value. We're talking about speed. We're talking about getting back to people. And now that I've created all these things where you're talking about value, speed, and getting back to me, what happens? Like, how do I go from now we're talking? What's the close? What's the next thing? I know people are dying to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, it all does come back to those three key levers. And if we look about, in particular, how do we close a deal? For me, and certainly the teams that I see really succeed in selling, and I would have worked with, certainly into thousands of salespeople now, is those that are most successful at closing. They're able to set up what a yes looks like in that first meeting. And this is really important for everyone listening. The best closers aren't the best ones at asking for the business at the end of the engagement. They're not the ones who have the most tricks to say, butter wouldn't melt in my mouth, here's how we're going to get the deal done. They're the ones that set up what a yes looks like early in the process. So by
Okay.
asking the right questions, by creating value, and let me give you an example. What have we spoken about today? We've spoken about painters. So if we were to use painters as an example, that when they go into that first meeting, they're really clear with the customer around what's most important to them. So is it quality of paint? Is it speed? Is it damage? Is it being able to bring to life a part of their house that they haven't been able to previously? Right? Is it doing an economical paint job, right? Is that important? And, we try to avoid talking about price, but sometimes that's what we have to do. And what the best salespeople are able to do is set up a structure that says, okay, thank you for having me in your home today. I'm really grateful. What's come out of today is that the most important piece for you is that we need to be able to get this project done with minimal impact to your family. You've got 3 kids at home, you work from home, right? And you know that if we don't get in here in this certain window, get the job done and get it done really well, that it's just not going to work for you. So if I'm able to come back to you with a quote that covers all your walls, your inside, your outside, we're going to work on really strong prep because you've got children who are going to mark the walls. And we're going to work this in the fastest window. We're going to hit it really fast with a big team. And we'll be in and out in 4 days. So we can build together a proposal that looks like that. What does the next step look like for you? And what we're doing is we're setting up right then and there for the customer to say, look, I really like that, but what you've forgotten is I want pink bathrooms, right? Let's think of something a bit silly. I want pink bathrooms, right? And I want them fluorescent in color so that when the lights are off, the kids have a fantastic time in there. You go, fantastic. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I wasn't aware of that. So if I add that into your proposal and we're in and out really quickly and we repeat those key points, what does that look like for you? And where we try to work here is that the customer's saying, great, I love it. Perfect, exactly what I want. Make sure your price is on point. When you're ready, come back to me. Okay, fantastic. I'll come back to you tomorrow with a quote. If you don't mind, I'll call you at this time. We'll run through it, and then you can decide what you want to do next. That's a really basic sales process, but it is far more successful than any processes that try to wow through features and benefits, that try to show how you are better than someone else, that try to produce magic through anything other than understanding what the customer wants. They are the most effective people at closing because their question, once they've presented, simply needs to be, what would you like to do next? What would you like to do from here? How do you want to proceed? It's really natural. It flows. And for me, that's when the best closing happens.
Well, that sounds like a modern approach versus features, advantages, benefits, and it sounds like a really clean, honest, earnest approach to creating value. And it sounds like you're not pressed and you're not trying to make a sale. You're trying to have an engagement that's positive for both people. Obviously, you're not trying to walk out of there without a sale or leave an engagement, walk out of there as metaphoric, without a sale, regardless of what product, service, or industry you're in. I feel like this is we've just unearthed a whole new category of how to sell honestly and how to introduce people to what the new era of sales are. So look, we're running low on some time here. Again, I can tell you I could go for 3 or 4 more hours. What's the best way to get a hold of you, man? What is your contact information? What's going on? How do we do it?
Yeah, look, absolutely. So normally at the end of a podcast interview like this, we'll have 2 streams of people: those who know they need some help now and would like to connect, and when we talk about value, one of the key ways to create value is through a really nice quotation. It's more than just mechanical, but it actually drives some engagement from customers. So for listeners of Total Disruption, we'll offer them a quote audit. So the link will be in your show notes. Thank you. You can click straight onto that and engage with us, and we'll help you make some positive changes. No cost, no obligation. We also then have people who aren't ready to engage with someone but do want to learn a bit more about how they can simplify their sales processes and get that 20 to 30% bump in sales really easily. For them, and look, I'd recommend that they go and listen to our podcast, which is Sales Growth Made Simple. It's one of the largest sales podcasts that are internationally. It has a big viewing here in Australia, but we'll drop a link to that into the show notes as well, and people can jump on there, and no doubt supports a lot of what you and Jake go through yourselves too.
Awesome. Ben, I can't thank you enough for being on the show, man. This was I've learned a lot. I know we had some internet stuff going on, but regardless, it was awesome. And we need to do a part 2. So I have so many more questions. Let's if Ben's gracious enough, it can break off some time. We're going to get part 2 going on. So for my co-host, Jake Clendenning, for Ben Wright, my name is Michael Libercci. You were just live on Total Disruption. We'll see you next time.